Preoccupied with a single leaf, you won't see the tree. Preoccupied with a single tree, you won't see the forest. Don't be preoccupied with a single spot. See everything in its entirety, effortlessly. This is what it means to truly see. Takuan Soho, from the mysterious record of immovable wisdom. Once there was a master walking in the forest with a group of his disciples, and suddenly he picks up a tree branch and says to one of the monks, "What is it?" The monk hesitates, doesn't answer immediately, so the teacher hits him with it. And then he turns to another monk and says, "Well, what is it?" And the monk says, "Give it to me, I want to see." So the master tosses him the branch. He catches it and he hits the master with it. And so the master says, "You got yourself out of that dilemma." This story wonderfully illustrates the message of the initial quote for today's conversation. Takuan Soho was a Japanese Zen master who lived during a time called the Sengoku period, which translates to the era of warring states, a nearly 200-year time span of civil wars and social upheaval. This period of fighting led to the rise of various prominent and famous samurai like the legendary and undefeated Miyamoto Musashi. In his letter to the renowned swordsman Yagyu Munenori, Takuan Soho explains the essence of Zen mind training under the allegory of swordsmanship and combat. In this treatise, he advises him not to allow his mind to become detained or trapped by anything. And by anything, he means anything, any matter at all. For as soon as the mind becomes caught or entangled in any way, we have lost the battle both in fighting and in day-to-day life. This stopping of the mind is called affliction, according to Buddhist teachings, and leads to our endless cycle of suffering. Any person who has experience with martial arts will be familiar with the fact that in a competition or an intense sparring match, there is no time for thinking. One moment of hesitation leads to either being struck or defeated. Hesitation before striking leads to telegraphing, slow movement, and so on. Hesitating while being attacked leads to flinching, tension, freezing, all of which give the opponent a major advantage. As was said earlier, this applies not just to combat, but to our day-to-day lives. The detainment or entrapment of the mind can refer to getting entangled in anything. And by anything, we mean external as well as internal causes. Not only can we be detained by our reactions to the world around us, but to our own internal state as well, such as painful memories, rumination, worry, and so on. The mind should ideally flow like a river, never stopping in any one place or another, allowing for us to do whatever is needed in the moment, naturally and spontaneously. As soon as we hesitate to make a decision, we are trapped. As soon as we dwell on a negative thought or feeling, we're trapped. The goal then is to learn how to handle these situations that usually detain us and flow through them as effortlessly as we would with a positive situation. We do this not by repressing or forcing ourselves to avoid the problem, but instead we learn how to accept it and experience it without judgment. As a Zen master once said, "Leave your front door and your back door open. Allow your thoughts to come and go. Just don't serve them tea." This quote illustrates the method by which we achieve a mind free of entrapment. This flowing of the mind or state of non-judgment is a state of non-resistance. It is a state of ultimate acceptance. This state of acceptance to any and everything is also the doorway through which we let go of all unwanted negative thoughts and feelings inside of us. Now, just a small disclaimer. This is not to say that we are to accept what life throws at us and become pacifists. We should not subject ourselves to forms of tyranny and abuse. No, that contradicts reason. We are not training ourselves to let life have its way with us. Instead, we are learning to accept and let go of our inner resistance so that when we are faced with these situations, we respond correctly with a calm, stable, and clear mind. This proper response to life is what Takuan Soho calls immovable wisdom. For as we implement his training, we become wise and free of affliction. And when our mind does not dwell, we are unmoved by the happenings around us, but always tranquil and clear-minded. We never again lose ourselves in the chaos of the world. This calmness and clarity that we achieve is what allows for spontaneous and intuitive action to occur. As Bruce Lee once said, "When there is opportunity, I do not hit. It hits all by itself." So then, upon hearing this, one may ask, well, why does it hit all by itself? It's because we have removed ourselves from the situation, and we have allowed our inner wisdom to take over. Now, of course, the next question that comes to mind is, does the untrained person strike with the same precision and power of Bruce Lee? Of course not. So in order for us to spontaneously and correctly react according to the situation at hand, we must always prepare ourselves for life using certain spiritual techniques. Just like a martial artist will prepare themselves for combat with their own set of drills and techniques. In this way, we too prepare ourselves to be in this ideal state of mind. With that point, I now want to shift focus from the theoretical side of things to the practical. There is a definite and simple technique to achieving what we previously spoke of. This technique is written about extensively by author David Hawkins, and it is what he calls the letting go technique. Now, considering that Takuan Soho is a Zen master, the practice that he obviously used was a practice called Zazen, which involves long hours of seated meditation. It has its own merits and benefits, but the downside is that it is not as accessible to the average person. The average person who has responsibilities in a busy life does not have the time to sit down and dedicate themselves to this kind of practice. The power of the letting go technique is in its accessibility and the fact that it takes far less effort and time to employ. Ultimately, both of these techniques achieve the same desired end. They lead to a state of acceptance and the diminishing of negative thoughts and emotions which we previously thought were outside of our control. Luckily, we do not need to dedicate a half hour to an hour of seated practice every day in order to implement this technique and reap its benefits. We can practice it at any time of the day. We can do it while sitting, while walking, while taking a break, or even while engaged in more mentally engaging activities like working. Now, despite being able to do it anytime and anywhere, it is still good and beneficial to take time every day to sit down and practice it in a concentrated manner. So now let's go over the technique, which is very simple. First, we identify a negative emotion or feeling. This negative emotion or feeling is pointing us to where we are entangled. Next, we focus and put our awareness on the feeling itself. Ignore any thoughts around the feeling, as they are irrelevant. The thoughts are simply a manifestation of the feeling itself. So the feeling is what we want to release. Positive thoughts will follow if done correctly. Now, while focusing on the feeling, allow the feeling to be there without resistance and without judgment. This is the acceptance we spoke of earlier. And finally, relax your body and choose to let it go. You can also ask yourself, can I let this go? Will I let this go? If you are successful and do the technique well, your body should reflexively let out a huge sigh. This is the body releasing the emotion. Now, you want to repeat the technique as many times as necessary. Remember, this is a daily practice which requires persistence and dedication. The martial artist does not practice his technique only once and expects to become a master. No, he is constantly refining it. Likewise, we should always remember to dedicate a little time to this technique, and by doing so, we will get better and better at identifying negative emotions and feelings and moving past them. With dedication and practice, not only will we have permanently let go of deeply rooted negative emotions, we will also reach a level where if a new one arises, we can swiftly and effortlessly identify it and move past it. Once we have reached even a basic level of proficiency in this practice, we have developed what Takuan Soho calls the unfettered mind. Thanks for listening.